Hello, and welcome to Storytime with Writer's Playground. Thanks for joining us. My name is Merick Humbert, and I will be your host. I'm coming to you solo today, and I'm sorry to say that our family has suffered a devastating loss, and Mariana is just unable to join us because of that. And I will talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but first I wanted to tell you a bit about our show for today because I'll be changing things up a bit since we are not coming at you full strength. I decided I didn't want to feature a story from one of our winning authors without Mariana by my side and all that she brings to the table. And I also didn't want to saddle someone with the heavy news that I have to share. So the idea that I had was to read a story that I wrote some years back and then criticize it. So that's what I'm going to do. It is a fine story. I think it's enjoyable, but it's not great. It's flawed. So I thought this would be a good way to give anyone interested an idea of how we approach stories when it comes to our critiques and giving feedback, because a lot of the issues that come up are common things that we see. So after I read the story, I will analyze it, and you can get a sense of the types of things that we look for in a piece when it comes to story development overall. And I think that would be useful as an example, especially seeing as though all the stories that we typically feature on this podcast are winners. We usually just share praise for these stories that we love. So today I hope to give you the flip side of that. I'll be more critical and negative, and I hope you still enjoy the story, but this one probably wouldn't be a winner for the reasons that I will lay out for you. So I think this will be a fun exercise overall. Okay, well, I did want to fill you all in what we have been going through. It has been an incredibly tough week and a half for our family, as we have suffered a tremendous loss. 2 weekends ago, Mariana's mother passed away, and this really came out of nowhere. So we're just completely shocked and heartbroken, and Mariana in particular is just shattered. She was so close to her mother, Tita. They talked on the phone every day. They would go out to lunch, they would go to concerts together, they did everything. And Tita seemed in perfect health, full of life, full of joy. She exercised every morning, ate healthy. We were all just together for Christmas and New Year's. My parents came to visit. Everything seemed perfectly fine. She came over to our apartment just a few days before. She went out to lunch with Mariana. I stayed home to work. They picked our son up from daycare. They stopped and got ice cream. She loved sharing it with my son, our son. Mariana and I were planning to move, actually. We had already done the paperwork and everything. We were going to live right down the street from Tita. She could come over anytime, maybe babysit so we could go to the movies. Mariana was going to go with her to the gym, the grocery store. She was just such a big part of our lives. I'm sorry. She was going to get to watch her grandson grow up. He is my love, she would say, with this beautiful smile on her face. And he was going to ask us if he could go to his abuela's for her delicious enfrijoladas. And then, in just a moment, we lost her. And we get none of that. And there's no making sense of it. It hurts so bad. And I see how much pain Mariana is in, and that hurts me even worse. I want to take it all away. And we're just in disbelief, just hoping that we can somehow wake up from this nightmare and see her face again. Hear her laugh. Hug her tight, what we wouldn't give. She made me feel like family from the first time I visited when Mariana and I were only dating, and she quickly became like a second mother to me. Always warm and loving, always trying to feed me. It's just so horrible. But I also know that she wouldn't want us to be in such pain. She's a wonderful woman, and I want to believe that she is looking down on us, and that someday we will see her again. We were so blessed to have her, and we just have to remind ourselves of that and to focus on all the wonderful memories that we have and how lucky we have been to have her in our lives for the time that we had. I love you, Tita. And I love you, Mariana. I just can't believe she's gone. But she'll live on through us, and we'll tell stories, show Miguel pictures, and make sure he knows his abuela. All right. Wow. I'm sorry. I wanted to share that. And I wanted to thank everyone who sent kind words and condolences. It means a lot to us. Thanks for listening. Well, I vented a bit there. And let's go ahead and get into the story for today. So today I will be reading Outside Jollies by me, Merick Humbert. It is a story set in the 50s in which a shop owner tells a story about regret to a group of neighborhood boys. Enjoy. Outside Jollies by Merick Humbert. There was much about Howard's own life that he did not know, but he was a happy boy. His parents loved him, he received top marks in academics, and he excelled on the baseball field. After their ball games on Saturdays, Howard and some of his teammates would ride their bikes down to Canterbury Street for a chocolate malt and pizza. They would get their malts from Jolly's, Mr. Duncan's sweet shop, and walk next door to Salvatore's Pizzeria, sit outside in the sun, and have a few slices of pie. Usually, Mr. Duncan would come out with his signature Diet Coke, and the boys would tell him about their day. Sometimes they would listen to the Dodgers game on the radio. "Can you believe they are moving to Los Angeles next year, Mr. Duncan?" Howard asked. "It's pretty hard to surprise me these days." "Ain't that a bite," Charlie said. "Benedict Arnolds, that's what they are. We still got the Yankees at least," Tommy chimed in. "Big deal," Howard replied. "Mickey Mantle's a big deal, that's for sure. He's already got 34 home runs. He might get 60. Mickey Mantle's a schmo. Like the Yankees or not, Mickey ain't no schmo." At this moment, Howard's little brother Ron came riding up on his bicycle. Mr. Duncan was sitting on a stool outside his shop, and the three boys, uniforms still covered in grass stains and dirt, were sitting at the table next to him. "What do you say, Mr. Duncan?" "Hey there, Ron," he replied. "What do you want, ankle biter?" Howard said. "Mom said you was down here. Say, can I get one of those chocolate malts, Mr. Duncan?" "Sure thing, kid." Mr. Duncan grabbed his cane, which was resting on the side of the building, slid off his stool, and limped his way back into his store, the little bell ringing as he opened the door, to make Ron his malt. "Can I get one of those?" "Hands off." "Mom said." All right. Go in there to Sal's and get yourself a plate." "I don't need a plate," he said, grabbing himself a slice. "How was the game?" "Mom said you guys won." 8-6. It was a good one. Charlie here got the winning RBIs. Where was you anyway? You're usually always there." "Artie got himself a guinea pig. I went over to check it out." "Artie? Poor thing will be dead in a week. Why anyone would want a guinea pig beats me." "Here's your malt, Ron," Mr. Duncan said, coming back out of the shop. "That's 2 dimes. Here you go, Mr. Duncan." At this moment, an angry-looking woman, followed closely by a boy being dragged by the ear, came walking up to Mr. Duncan. "Jonathan has something to say to you, Mr. Duncan," she said. "Well, go on." The boy stood there for a moment, looking down in shame and embarrassment. I took a chocolate caramel bar when I was in here earlier, Mr. Duncan." "Took it," his mother said. "Stole it, that's what you did. Never thought I'd live to see the day that I raised a thief. Go on." "I'm sorry, Mr. Duncan, really, I am." "There's places in the world they'll cut your hand off for stealing," his mother said. "Is that what you want?" "No, ma'am." His head was still pointed to the sidewalk. "You feel bad, Jonathan?" Mr. Duncan asked. "Yes, sir." "You regret what you did?" he went on. "I sure do." "You ever going to do it again?" "Never, sir." He was starting to cry. "All right, then I think we can forgive you. And I'll forget about this little mess, but don't you go doing it again." "No, sir." "Now cut on out of here. You'll be all right." "Thank you, Mr. Duncan. So sorry about all this. Here." She handed him a quarter for the chocolate bar. "No sweat, Miss Ellis. Thank you. You take care now." As Miss Ellis and Jonathan were leaving, Mr. Duncan turned to see the boys giggling at their table. "What a goof," Tommy said, and they all broke out laughing. All right, you little monsters, cut the gas. I'm sure you all done something you wish you hadn't. Everybody does." "Not me," said Charlie. "How about you, Mr. Duncan?" Howard asked. "You ever done something you regret?" "Well, sure. I suppose I got the biggest of them all." "It was over a doll, I bet," Charlie said. The boys laughed. "Is that true, Mr. Duncan? Was it over a doll?" "Actually, it was, boys. A truly spectacular woman. And I was very much in love. I think we both were." "Well, what happened?" "Yeah, tell us about it, Mr. Duncan." "Well, all right. I suppose I can. We met during the war. Was she killed in the war? Ron quickly interrupted. No, stupid, Howard said. Women didn't fight in the war. No, they didn't, Mr. Duncan went on. But there were a lot of important things to be done right here, back at home, to help with the war effort and all. We couldn't have beat the Germans without our women, no sir. I wanted to help too, but there really wasn't much I could do, on account of my leg and all. Whatever did happen to your leg, Mr. Duncan? That's rude, Ron. Don't mind. No, my leg was on account of a case of polio I had as a child. Anyhow, I couldn't go overseas to fight. Couldn't even work in the Brooklyn shipyard, helping to build them ships to take our boys over there. You didn't have jollies to run? No, every able body was needed to help with the war effort, you see. I wanted to do my part, and on account of the sugar ration, I wouldn't have been able to keep jollies open if I wanted to. Why was there a sugar ration? Stop asking so many questions, harebrain. Let him tell a story. These are good questions, Mr. Duncan said. You see, we got about a third of our sugar supply from the Philippines. And when the Japs took them over, that cut off that supply. Then there was the German U-boats sinking cargo ships left and right, all over the place. It was hard to get, so we rationed. In the meantime, I closed up Jolly's and worked in the garment district, making uniforms for our boys. That's where I met Helen. Skippy, Charlie said. One day, I was sewing on a pocket of a coat, and the needle went right through my pointer finger. Right there, he said, showing it to them. You can still see the scar through the nail. The boys each got close so they could see. Ah! The boys jumped at the surprise. Mr. Duncan laughed. Helen was a couple workstations away, but she came right over and helped clean me up. And that's how we met. Pretty soon, we were thick as thieves. So what went wrong, Mr. Duncan? Well, the problem was she was married. You bird-dogged him, Mr. Duncan? No, not exactly. That wasn't my intention, at least. I wanted to respect the fact that she was married. Respect her, respect him. We was just going to be friends, see? But some things are more powerful than you, me, anybody. Her husband was over there fighting in the war. They married just before he left. She was lonely, I suppose. Over there in a little flat on Lovington, all by her lonesome. Well, we started having lunch together almost every day. Something just clicked between us. Both couldn't stand our boss, the short, balding, fat man named Wallgrass with a bit of a Napoleon complex, if you ask me. What's a Napoleon complex? Oh, it's when little guys try to act big and tough to make up for their shortcomings. He was a mean guy. Not very happy, I don't think. Anyways, we griped about him together. Sometimes she would bring lunch for us to share, and some days I'd make something and bring it for the both of us. We'd talk about music and about the pictures. Pretty soon we'd be meeting up on our days off to spend the day together. She loved jazz, see? I never really listened to it. Might have heard a bit on the radio from time to time, but I didn't pay it much mind. I was a classics guy myself. But she just loved it. So one day she invited me over for some tea and cake and to show me her records. I must listen, I must, she said. She made herself a beautiful little home. Best anyone could have done with such a place, I should say. Warm and cozy. She made a nice little coffee cake for us out of that month's rations. Sweetest woman, and the best damn coffee cake I ever did try. What records did you listen to, Mr. Duncan? Billie Holiday was her favorite. I heard my pa say she was a blues singer. I'd say your pa's right. Jazz, blues, it's all kind of intertwined, I would say. She showed me Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis, Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. I was just blown away, honestly. And you could just see how the music touched her. I watched her as we listened. It seemed as if she just slipped away to another world altogether. When she came back, she could talk and talk, knew all the history. And boy, I could just listen to her for hours. That's swell, Mr. Duncan. Doesn't seem right to me. What's that, Charlie? Bird dogging a man's wife while he's out fighting for our freedom. They was just listening to music and talking, Howard said. What's she supposed to do, stay locked in the closet till the man comes back from war? Find herself a dame friend. In some respects, there's no doubt you're right, Mr. Duncan said. Perhaps it was wrong, but only the big man knows for sure. I think you'll find that this life is full of complexity. Opposing forces colliding at full speed like a couple of locomotives. Right and wrong are human creations, you see. Love don't pay no mind. Sounds like malarkey to me. Fair enough, I suppose. He don't know nothing, Mr. Duncan. What happened next? From that moment, I fell in love with jazz, and I was over the moon with Miss Helen. I'm an Elvis man myself, Tommy said. That's some music you can dance to. The girls in our class go bonkers for him, Charlie said. He's as big as Coca-Cola. Past my time. Give me a minute, boys. Just at this moment, a woman with her 2 little children came walking up to the shop. Mr. Duncan slipped down off his stool, limped over, and met them at the door. He opened it for them, the little bell ringing, and then followed in behind. A few moments later, Mr. Duncan came out, little bell ringing, and held the door for the woman and her children, brown paper bag of chocolates in hand. What happened next, Mr. Duncan? Let's see. On another day, we went to the movies. Meet Me in St. Louis was the big one then, with Judy Garland. We went over to the Variant to catch it. Helen just loved it. Afterwards, we went for hamburgers. Then we talked about pictures. His Girl Friday was her favorite. Loved Cary Grant. But Bogart was my guy. Petrified Forest is the best picture ever made, if you ask me. Never heard of it, Charlie said. We just saw Angels with Dirty Faces over at Classico, didn't we, Tommy? Howard said. Sure did. Great picture, Mr. Duncan said. They was doing Cagney gangster pictures all day. We saw that, and White Heat, and Roaring Twenties. Nothing like the pictures on a hot day. Ain't that the truth? What else did you all do, Mr. Duncan? Another day we went to Coney Island. Did you ride the Cyclone? You betcha. And the Wonder Wheel? We did it all. Oh boy. Popcorn and hot dogs, and the best company. I was truly smitten, boys. So what's the big regret, Mr. Duncan? Husband came home, I bet. Caught you, didn't he? Charlie said. Not exactly. Well, one day she invited me over for dinner. End of February, I think. Cold day. Wind was howling like no other. Anyway, we have a wonderful dinner. She made a beef stew. We had some wine. Listened to some records. All the while it had begun to snow. Well, it was getting late, and I'm getting ready to leave. I got on my coat, gloves, hat, scarf. I open the door, and the snow's coming down and wind's blowing like mad. She tells me to stay. Says I can sleep on the sofa couch. Wait for the storm to pass. So I do. We open some more wine, listen to some more records, and the next thing I know, we share this big, beautiful kiss. Gross! Mr. Duncan, you didn't. It was one of the loveliest nights of my life, boys. So what'd you do after? Well, after that, she seemed a little distant, feeling bad on account of her husband and all. That's what I think. And I was feeling lousy myself, but at the same time, full of joy like I never felt before. But I didn't know what to do, so I let her have some space. We still had lunch together at work, but things seemed just a little different. I wish I would have talked about it. Anyway, about a month later, her husband came home. Then the war ended. Not too long after, she had a little boy. You still see her around? From time to time. Who's the little boy? I bet we know him. I can't say. Anyway, that's my big regret. Sorry you got all mixed up in that, are you? Not at all. I'm sorry I didn't fight for her. I'm sorry that's not my boy I'm raising. I'm sorry I gave up. She was a wonderful woman, boys, the likes of which I've never seen or hope to see again in this lifetime. Don't give up, Mr. Duncan. I'm sure there's a broad out there for you somewhere. Not like Helen, my sweet, sweet Helen. She never tried your chocolates, Mr. Duncan? One time, I made a batch of my truffles one day and brought them into work. Boy, did she love my chocolate truffles. Still comes in to get them from time to time. My mom likes chocolate truffles, Howard said. A lot of people like chocolate truffles. All right, that was Outside Jollies. And I actually wrote this story for a New York City Midnight competition back in 2019, I think it was. My prompts were a chocolatier. The genre I got was historical fiction. And I don't remember what the third one was. I think there was an object as well. So I wrote that within the few days that they give you for the challenge. And I liked the outcome. I was happy to get historical fiction. I love 20th century history and just that time period in general. So I came up with the idea, and I was excited to make some of the references and to try to incorporate slang from the time period. And ultimately, it came out as a pretty charming and enjoyable piece, I thought. It didn't end up advancing. And I remember being frustrated about that and about not finding the feedback particularly helpful or insightful. I'm not always the best at receiving criticism myself. But over time, I think I figured out why this piece doesn't really work. So let's go over that. First of all, I would say the story is too reliant upon the revelation that we get in the end, how it is left ambiguous, but how it's implied that Howard could be Mr. Duncan's son, or he might not be, who knows. A lot of people like chocolate truffles. Of course, Mr. Duncan could change and alter his story in any way that he wanted to hide revealing details from the children as he told it to them. I don't think I'd go as far as to say that this scenario was common, but I do think there were probably several instances of children conceived while husbands were away at war. Anyway, so the reason that I say the story is too reliant upon that implication that we get in the end, along with some of the amusing interaction that we get between the characters in the story, at least I thought it was amusing, is because the story doesn't really have much else going for it in terms of plot development or character development. Mr. Duncan's story about falling in love has some interesting details, but it's pretty generic, and it is all coming through his dialogue. So this aspect of the story is more telling, not showing, like the old adage says to avoid. By the way, the show don't tell advice I think is very often misunderstood. I think it more means don't summarize, actually show the reader within scenes. It doesn't mean you should write pages of descriptive language. It means don't tell us characters funny or charming, have him do something funny and charming. Let us get to know him through his actions instead of just telling us about him. Don't tell us he was verbally abusive. Have him say something abusive. Let us hear it through his voice. These are just some examples. Anyway, the part of the story in which Mr. Duncan is telling them about Helen is telling, not showing. We don't actually get to see Helen as a character or any of their interaction. So it keeps the reader at a distance and ends up being more of an overview of what happened, as opposed to scenes that we're immersed in. But in contrast to that, the present moment of the story in which we see Mr. Duncan interacting with the children is actually showing, because that scene actually comes to life through their dialogue. But there's nothing really happening of any consequence in this. It's just him telling them a story. At least any consequence that we get to see in this piece. Who knows? Maybe Howard figures it out and this does actually end up becoming consequential in the long run, but we don't see that in this piece. As far as we know, all the characters are at the same place in the end as they were at the beginning. So there's no movement. There's no arc. Another problem with the story is that I would say that Mr. Duncan is a passive character. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Some of the questions that I think it is always helpful to consider are, what does the character want? Why? What is standing in their way? And what do they do about it? Okay, so for Howard, who is also one of the primary characters of the story, we don't know the answer to any of these questions. We don't really know much at all about him. And we don't see any significant conflict for this character. And the problem is that there isn't much of a conflict for Mr. Duncan either. So let's go through those questions again with him. What does he want? He wants to be with Helen, raising that boy. Why? Because he loved her. And it's implied that it might be his child. So what's standing in his way? Helen's husband. And what does Mr. Duncan do about it? Nothing. And that's what makes him a passive character. He makes no significant choices and takes no significant actions. And these are things that drive a story. The choices and actions that a character makes to overcome or at least confront a conflict. And we don't get that in this story. They don't even always have to succeed. Sometimes they can fail. But we should at least see a character making an attempt to overcome whatever they are struggling with. So I think those are the major issues with this story. But the last note I would add is to be careful when making cultural references. I had fun with this piece, referencing some classic movies, some classic music. But at the same time, I think that might have been more fun for me than it would be for a reader, unless you're fans of these things as well, especially if you're not familiar with the things I'm making reference to, or if you don't like them. Sometimes that can come across as a bit self-indulgent if there's too much of it. And I think I might have had a little too much of that in this piece. Getting a little carried away with my enjoyment for the time period. But in this regard, I would say subtlety is key. All right, well, I'm going to end it there. Hopefully that will be helpful for you all, giving you a sense of some of the things that we look for and consider, and helpful when you are considering story development in general. I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but when I first began with creative writing and critiquing stories, Sometimes I would come across a story and I'd feel like, I don't really like this piece, but I'm not sure why. It seems well written, the story seems fine or okay, but it just didn't really grab you. You're like, I didn't really like this, but can't really put into word why exactly that is. Well, I think really coming to understand some of the objective reasons why stories work and why they don't. And there's also always going to be some subjectivity, and there are exceptions to every rule. But there are also real objective elements of storytelling, and I think it will always be helpful to consider some of the things that I went over just a moment ago when analyzing a piece. So the main takeaways would be to try to avoid writing passive characters, show don't tell, and ask yourself those questions when analyzing conflict and character development. What do they want? Why? What is standing in their way? And what do they do about it? I think those are essential. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Storytime with Writers Playground, and Mariana should be back with us for our next episode in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody, and let those close to you know how much you love them. There's the saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, and that couldn't be more true. You just never know. We love you and we miss you, Tita. Bye, everyone.